and welcome to The Next Page. I'm Ange Cooksey, your co-host for this program, along with Jim Cohen from Birth to Five. The Next Page is a program created for you, our viewers, the members of our community, and our mission with the program is twofold. We are co-sponsored by both the Wayne County Literacy Coalition and Birth to Five, and the mission of both of our organizations in part, and certainly this program, is to promote literacy in all of its forms throughout Wayne County. Welcome to our program today. In our first segment, joining me is Dr. Rosalie Aldrich, Assistant Professor of Communication Studies at Indiana University East. Dr. Aldrich is a specialist in what we call health communications, and although that might be a new kind of phrase or title for you, Dr. Aldrich is going to educate us today both about her expertise area, health communication, and more importantly today, Dr. Aldrich, health literacy. So welcome to our program and thank you for joining us today. I want to give our viewers just a little bit of background about our relationship and why I've kind of dogged you all summer to join us on the program. Dr. Aldrich is very busy and involved in many research projects, one with me included. But I've invited Dr. Aldrich on the show today because the theme of all of our programs this year on The Next Page is literacy also in all of its forms. One very important form of literacy is healthcare literacy. And Dr. Aldrich and I came to talk a lot about this as my research as an academic in death and dying and end of life, and Dr. Aldrich's research in suicide prevention and that dimension of end of life began to crossroad and intersect, resulting in a research project we worked on this summer about identity at the end of life. Inevitably, we ended up, Rose, at health literacy. Right. And so talk a little bit about health communication, what that is, what your degree is in, and how that has a relationship with health literacy for our viewers today.
Okay. Well, health communication is really, it's a subset of the communication studies, and it focuses on, there's different areas you can focus on. So the one we'll probably be talking about today is going to be a lot to do with the patient-provider communication and how ineffective that is sometimes and how that impacts our health. You can also study, what my research is on suicide prevention, so I'm focusing on what messages are most persuasive to get someone to intervene. You can also talk about different health campaigns. So how do you get people to stop doing something unhealthy or to pick up a healthy behavior like putting on sunscreen? So health communication is just messages dealing with health, and it can be interpersonal, it can be mass media. I tend to focus on the interpersonal side.
I think that's beautiful and is so important for our quality of our life in so many ways. So health communication, an expertise area, how then do you really specifically interweave into my life with regard to health literacy?
Well, I think it's really important, the communication with the doctors at the end of life, the communication with family members, and making sure there's an understanding, because I think that gets lost at the end of life specifically, and it's non-existent with suicide for many cases.
And what we've discovered is that health literacy at the end of life has an important relationship with health literacy in general for the rest of our life. I know that one of my profound findings is that the most important way to approach death and dying is to punctuate what we do while we're living. So health literacy, it is understanding, translating, recommunicating. Talk a little bit about health literacy generally.
A really simple way to think of health literacy is it's the ability and motivation. Those are two key areas. You can't just have the ability, you have to be motivated to obtain, understand, and apply health information to your health decisions. So it's not just about reading and writing and understanding that. If you can read and write but you can't apply the information to help you make a good, healthy decision, then you're considered low health literate. So that you have to have the motivation and the ability, you have to have the resources available to get that good information, then you have to process that information, and then you have to be able to apply it to your life.
And that really is a set of complex tasks. So let's sort of look at it one by one. So health literacy might begin with being motivated to procure information.
Yes.
Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes.
So what would that actually look like on the level of an individual or a patient? Where all would I be looking to get information about an illness I might have, a doctor I need to find out? What would I do?
Well, there's always the internet, but there's always questionable sources on that. So it's finding that credible sources. You can always talk to your healthcare provider. You can contact insurance companies sometimes. They're being the ones that help you find the appropriate doctor. So that's a place to start. But I want people to know that a lot of people suffer from low health literacy. So they're not alone. I feel like sometimes they feel like they're alone and they're
Absolutely.
ashamed and they're embarrassed, and so they avoid medical encounters altogether.
Yes.
And it's really, unfortunately, pretty common. So I have some information, just background information,
our
to
viewers
let people know
very
that you're not
interested.
alone out there.
Yes.
So about 50% of adults in the U.S., which I'm sure you know, working with the Literacy Coalition, they read at an 8th grade level or lower.
Yes.
Well, that is a problem when it comes to health information. So most health information is written at the college level, so you can see the disconnect.
Of course.
So the language they're using, sentence structure, I mean, people are just totally lost. If you're reading at an 8th grade level and they're writing this stuff at a college level, there's a huge disconnect. Often, the content that's presented, it is cluttered. It's very lengthy. It's complex. They use medical jargon, insurance jargon, financial jargon. There's little illustrations showing how to do something, how to take a medication a certain way, when to
Yes.
take it. Very often it's one size fits all, so culture isn't even considered, which can be off-putting sometimes.
Yes, of course.
And so that makes understanding that information very difficult. So
And we're talking about things like everything from the information we might find on the internet, handouts or pamphlets we'd get at the doctor's office, even those sometimes very lengthy explanations with our medications that we get. And we could even include health information that we might get attached to over-the-counter medications, the backs of bottles and the backs of boxes.
Yeah,
So,
have you ever read a prescription label?
Absolutely.
It's hard to understand.
absolutely. So we're talking about all those kinds of printed materials that can truly present some obstacles to us.
Right, yes. So we've got that. We've got all the
Yes,
printed
of
materials,
course.
and then you have your health plan. So that's
my.
a whole new language, different world of its own. So a
Yes.
PPO, HMO, premiums, copays, they're all in a foreign language to me anyway. And now we have the Affordable Care Act that adds another kind of complex layer on
Yes.
that. So that makes it difficult to understand what's covered, how much is covered. And because of that confusion, people just tend not to go to the doctor because I don't know if that's covered. I don't know if this
Of
prescription
course.
is covered, and so they avoid it. That's one reason people avoid it. But again, you're not alone. Less than half the people in the U.S. understand their coverage, which is sad because you don't know when you can go, where you can go, what you can do.
It's an interesting parallel, too. There's 50% illiteracy rate and 50% healthcare illiteracy rate. And let's return just a second to the new developments in healthcare, things like the Affordable Care Act. Even if we were gaining some traction on being healthcare literate, a new variable then, too, would be changes that are constantly being imposed on that healthcare recipient and the provider as well, which makes
every year we get a new. And even
compounds the
you and I, we
difficulty.
probably are at the same institute. We probably have different plans that have different criteria and different.
Yes.
So we can't even talk to each other and figure it out
to
together.
clarify, right? Very interesting.
Yes. So there's just a lot of difficult information related to health, which
Yes.
causes confusion and frustration and eventually leads people to kind of stay away.
And if we do make it to our doctor's office, there are several problems that might await us there. And maybe we shouldn't call them problems. We'll simply call them predicaments. One might be that maybe we don't make a list of questions ahead of time. So we get there and we're thinking about 10 things simultaneously and really have difficulty getting even one of them out, understandably.
Yes. So that is one thing they do recommend. Make sure you have a list of questions and concerns, and make sure the doctor answers them.
Sure.
Unfortunately, the research shows that in about 8 to 10 seconds into talking to your doctor is going to interrupt. Some of that is they're on a time crunch, and some of that is they want to get to what they feel is the important information. And, if you're nervous, you're disclosing very personal information sometimes.
Yes.
We can take a little longer to get there than the doctor wants us to, but then that can cause people to kind of shut down, not tell them everything, not get through all their questions. So that is part of the effective communication portion. Doctor's not hearing all the information. If they interrupt you and you can't get all of your concerns out, chances are you're going to be misdiagnosed because they don't have all the information. So you're misdiagnosed, and then you're given the wrong prescription.
Yes.
And then you may take that prescription correctly or incorrectly based on your understanding of it.
Yes.
And a lot of research shows, too, that if you feel like the doctor isn't listening to you or understanding you, you're less likely to comply because you're like,
of course.
They don't know what they're talking about because they don't know what's wrong with me because they didn't let me finish.
Yes. This is such critical information to be sharing with our viewers. Even listening to our program and trying to process what we're saying is also healthcare literacy, right? What's beautiful is our listeners can take all of this in an auditory and visual way. That isn't always true, though, is it, with healthcare information?
No, it's not. Sometimes you get one or the other.
Yes.
And if you have, so beyond just the basic, being able to get a pamphlet that's confusing. If you are not a great reader or fast reader, you're going to have all those consent forms that you sign and don't understand. If you have hearing issues, your doctor could be explaining it very clearly, but if you don't hear them maybe 100%, that can be an issue.
Yes.
Again, the financial literacy, understanding dosages. I know I've done that in a panic. My kids have been sick, and you're like, 5 tablespoons or 5 teaspoons? What am I supposed to do? And so,
do I use one that I eat out of? Do I use a measuring teaspoon? How do you do this?
Yes.
Right,
so
of course.
There's a lot to consider.
Yes. Very interesting. So healthcare literacy is just critical, but I have to say, and I know that you know, there has not been a lot of work done, community to community, maybe even doctor's office by doctor's office, first to diagnose a problem with health literacy. We're too busy diagnosing maladies, but we have not brought this issue to the forefront until recently. Do you think the Affordable Care Act has really shone the spotlight on how we need to increase our healthcare literacy?
There definitely is a focus on it with the Affordable Care Act. There is a provision in there where they're focusing on this as an issue. It needs to be addressed, and so I think that's good. There's been a ton of research done on high-risk health illiterate groups, so we know people who are higher risk. There has not been a lot, and there's been quite a bit of research actually on what the healthcare provider can do to make their materials and their presentation to the client more clear. There's been almost no research done on what a patient can do to be proactive about it.
And Rose, that's the critical place, and probably where most of our viewers are. If some of our viewers today are saying to themselves, I think I could improve my health literacy, where could they go in Richmond, Wayne County, our viewing counties, to get some help in ramping up their health literacy?
Well, they definitely could visit the Wayne County Coalition. They can come see you guys.
Yes, they can.
There often is, I'm not sure if there's one at Reed, but often at big hospitals there's a patient advocate. So that is a person that is just there for the patients. They want to hear your concerns. They want to help you understand. There are some times you can request for a healthcare, like not a healthcare doctor, but like a worker to come home with you and make sure your medication is set up. If you have multiple medications, definitely speak to a pharmacist. They can be very helpful in helping you organize and say, when you take what, because that's also a problem too. If you have a visually impaired and you're low health literate, maybe you have a little blue pill that you're supposed to take every other day, and then you have an oval blue pill, but it's similar in size, and you're supposed to take that once a week. Well, if you mess those up, that's an issue.
It can be terrible. It can have terrible consequences.
So I think asking questions, coming with questions is great. One of the high-risk groups are immigrants who don't speak English.
Yes.
So I would highly recommend to bring a trusted friend or family member who can translate for you. Hospitals doctor's office is not as much, but hospitals usually have a translator, often in Spanish, but other languages not as often. So I would encourage you to request that. If you have vision issues, ask for it audio.
Yes.
If you have hearing issues, make sure you get it visually. Just make sure you're asking, because right now the doctors are aware of the issue, the healthcare providers are aware. There's a lot of tips out there. The American Medical Association has a bunch of good information for the healthcare provider. So they're aware of the problem, they want to help, but you have to ask. You have to be your own advocate, and you have to know that you shouldn't be embarrassed or ashamed, because you're with 50% of the U.S. right now. Like, it's an issue.
And I think it's important also to establish today that both of us have multiple degrees, and I'll speak for both of us. We are challenged with healthcare literature out there right now. Insurance literacy, healthcare plan literacy, and then just translating for our children, in my case, elderly parents, translating information for them is just, it's a daily challenge sometimes.
Yes.
It's for all of us.
Well, even just getting a diagnosis, that American Medical Association has a webpage with a video, and people get this diagnosis and they don't understand what it is. So they have this clip of this man who has hypertension, and he's taking a pill for it, but he doesn't know what it is. And they ask him, what is it? And he's like, well, I guess you think I'm hyper and I run around. And the doctor's like, oh, I have failed you. That is not what it is. And so I think you get these big words that's what you're diagnosed with, and then you get 3 pills of things you can't pronounce.
Yes, and it just compounds. We need to keep chipping away at this issue. Our work hopefully will help in that. Dr. Aldridge, do you have any final words for our audience today?
So I guess the overall point of our talking today is that health literacy is the strongest predictor of your health outcomes, of how healthy you are. It's stronger than age, income level, education level. It is the strongest predictor of your overall health outcomes, and it's very important to get help with it, to understand it, to ask questions, because this impacts your health.
Dr. Rosalie Aldridge, thank you for joining me on this segment of The Next Page.
Thanks for having me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Birth to 5 segment of The Next Page. I'm your host, Jim Cohen, Executive Director of Birth to 5. Today, our guest is Cindy Isaacs, a parent educator with Birth to 5's Parents as Teachers program. Cindy is going to give us an overview of Playgroup and the Book Buddy programs that we provide to the community. Well, Cindy, welcome to the program. We're really pleased to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Now, I know that part of being a parent educator is receiving extensive training to be certified by Parents as Teachers America, but you come to us with a tremendous amount of background in early childhood and preschool education. Could you share a little bit of that with us, please?
Yes, I received my bachelor's in health, PE, and recreation, was certified kindergarten through 12th grade. I went on to open and operate my own preschool for about 5 years. From there, I started Tiny Tumblers, which was a tumbling classes that we went to daycares and worked with the preschoolers. And after a few years, a friend of mine has taken that over, and it's still going. This was just my next step in my adventure of playing with children, because I enjoy that so much.
Excellent. So, Birth to 5 has 2 outreach programs that are open to the community at large, and one of them is our playgroups, and the other one is our Book Buddies programs. Could you give us an idea and an overview about those programs?
Sure. Playgroups meet once a week. We have playgroups on Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays throughout Wayne County. We have one in Centerville at Rose Hamilton. We will have one in Cambridge City, and then we have several in Richmond. They're all listed on our Birth to 5 web page, and they all meet at 10 o'clock. We have a special one that we just started that is meeting out at Friends Fellowship in the courtyard, and we have some seniors that sit and watch the children play and interact with the children and really enjoy that, and it meets twice a month. At playgroups, we have about 45 minutes of free play time, and the parents can play with their children. They can interact with the other adults that are there. Some of our moms use it as their support group, and getting information from other moms. And then at the end, we gather everybody together and we do some songs and with actions. We also read some stories. Literacy is a big part of all of our community outreach things. Through the reading of the stories, we try to show parents how to read and not just read the words, but also talk about the book, ask the children questions, trying to get their involvement in it to get more thinking skills developed.
So it sounds like in the play groups, there's a lot of opportunity for parents to exchange ideas,
Yes.
As well as for children to learn to socialize and work together.
Right. For preschoolers, sharing is a very hard concept to learn, and this is a good place to do it.
Sure. Okay, great. And so the Book Buddies program differs how?
It is more organized. It is a once a month. We have 6 book buddies each month. It's all the same theme. We do 3 at Richmond at our Birth to 5 office, and then I also do 1 at Hagerstown, Cambridge, and Centerville libraries. And the theme is the same all month, but then we change themes. Our first one was a scholastic book sale to try to raise points so we can buy more books, because each child takes home a free book at each book buddy. The book buddies, we have a time where the children will do crafts, motor activities. We do, again, literacy and stories, talking to the children about the books. We also, when I do it out in the community, in the libraries, I try to incorporate some of the parents in taking turns reading the books with the children.
Very good.
And it gets, some of them are very anxious to help, and some of them are a little nervous about it, but it
Sure.
gives them a chance to try out the reading skills that they're learning.
So in many ways, it sounds like both of these programs, both the play group and the book buddies, seem to be just as much of a learning experience for the parents as it is for the children.
Right. We are all about parent educating, and that's where we get our title. We do not just go in and play with the children, although that's a fun part of it. We also are trying to teach the adults, the parents, the grandparents about development, about ways, activities, things they can do to help their children develop.
So it also sounds like one of the things you do is in terms of the interaction, is you're kind of a role model for parents when it comes to how to interact with the children, how you interact with the children in the groups, and how you read. Can you speak a little bit to the concept of, and I know I'm bringing in a new idea here, dialogic reading, which is what you were describing.
Sure. Dialogic reading is when you open the book, even before you open it, you look at the cover and you say, what do you think the story might be about? What do you see on here that you recognize? And letting the children respond, so it's almost like a conversation throughout the book and not just them sitting listening. And then as you turn the pages and you're reading and you're talking about what's going on in the pictures, you might stop and ask them, what do you think will happen next? What does it look like this little boy is doing in the picture? And trying to get their input so that they're not just sitting listening, but they're actually thinking and processing. That develops their language, it develops their thinking skills.
So one of the things that we know that Birth to 5 is part of Birth to 5 and Parents as Teachers' mission is to prepare kids to be kindergarten ready. So what do kids take away and parents take away from the play groups and the Book Buddies program that contribute to their readiness for kindergarten?
A lot of getting ready for kindergarten, besides the language skills, is to learn following directions. It's learning how to sit still for a period of time. We work on motor skills, we work on language skills, we work on intellectual and social skills, all of those. And so the more they have those down and are developing, then the easier kindergarten is going to be for them.
Now, if I remember correctly, we have the age groups that are served by Book Buddies and by the play groups are different. Could you describe that for us a little?
Play groups are open to any child pre-K and under. We've had expectant moms come before the baby's even born, and they've found some good support with other moms and asking questions about, the birthing and then what do you do when they cry all night, things like that. So they've found support even before the child has arrived. The Book Buddies are normally 3 years to 5 years old. We do have a few, and those are also listed on our website, of ones that are open to 2-year-olds also. Our Christmas one is because it's all about making crafts, and so it's open to 2-year-olds also.
So really, when we're talking about the Book Buddies program, we're pretty much focusing on kids that are at the point where they may begin to start reading and recognizing letters and things of that nature.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so that's why we have that limitation. Okay, so how many, in the course of a month, how many play groups do we actually have?
Right now we have 7 play groups in the county that are going on.
But they meet every single week.
They meet every week.
So that's 7 programs, that's 7 play groups times 4 every month. So
Right.
we've got around 28 play groups that we run throughout the county. So it gives the people plenty of opportunity to come and visit with us.
Yes, and there is no registration. It's just drop in, and you can come to one or all of the play groups, however many you feel like attending.
Okay.
And last year we had actually in our play groups, we normally run the play groups through the school season. There's 2 that went through the summer, but last year in the school season, we had 1,307 children that came to play groups.
Wow.
So they're very popular.
Well, great. That's great. Now, the Book Buddies programs, they're not quite, we don't have quite as many of those. So how many of those do we
No.
run in the course of a month?
In a month we have 6.
6.
And then they also run through the school year, plus we have a special one in the summer that we contribute. Well, River Rats cooperates with us, and we do it out there. So we have 10 Book Buddies themes a year, and that was 55 Book Buddies last year.
Okay. And about, do we know about how many kids we served in?
616.
So we had over 616 kids who attended
And each
Book
child
Buddies.
took a free book home when they went home.
Yes, excellent, very good. So, how does somebody find out when our play groups and when our Book Buddies are scheduled?
Okay, you can like us on Facebook, My
Okay.
Birth to 5, or our website is www.mybirthto5.org.
Okay,
And it's all spelled out.
okay, right. And I think they're going to run that on the crawl for us. And also, when they go to the website, you can click on the events button at the top of the page, and that will take them to a calendar that will show all the schedule for the month.
It shows it, and they also can register on the website.
Okay. Well, it's really been great talking with you, and I really appreciate your time and all the information you shared
Thank
with us. And that's all for Birth to 5 Next Page for this month. Please join us again next month, and next month we'll be talking more about home visiting with our Parents as Teachers program.